So, good size agenda. I don't know how I let this get out of hand. So we'll try to rip through this as quickly as possible. We'll start off, first item on the agenda was liaison reports. I'll just kind of, I'll start, actually, I'm gonna start with Jeffrey since you're on the line, and then I'll go back to the room. Any liaison report from you, Jeffrey?
Yes, I was at the school committee meeting last week, I guess. And the facilities director said that he's going to be putting a $500,000 ask on the warrant for November. The costs for the Parker roof replacement have gone up. He also wants to put a $200,000 increase to deal with some glycol recycling at the high school. That's used to prevent pipes from freezing. He wants to pull it all out, rehab the pipes, and pump it back in. And glycol apparently has tripled in price over the pandemic and supply chain issues. So those are two big things that are new, I guess, that we'll have to, well, we'll have to go in and look at free cash. So we need to be prepared for those to show up in the capital plan.
Yep. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Yep.
I'll go to Joe McDonough. Joe, do you have anything?
No, can't top that.
Mary Ann?
Just, even though I'm not the school committee person, just another thing that came up, in case you didn't realize, when they went over the outline of the Killam plan, it's now gonna include moving Rise to Killam, which I think they had talked about, but that's what they're gonna ask the state for, so I don't know if that's gonna change the ask of the design study or whatever the study is. I forget whether it's feasibility or design study that they're gonna ask for in November. But I think originally GNAP, and Jeff, you know this too, wasn't GNAP originally the plan only thinking a new Killam and moving Rise in maybe was an option, but that wasn't what they were budgeting, cause I thought that they came up with like 80 million, in 2 years ago dollars for just Killam. But if they're gonna put Rise there, I know that they wanna have another hearing because people spoke at the meeting. It's gonna it's gonna change the entrance where the building is. The building will be a lot bigger, maybe 30% bigger. They'll have to have traffic notices to other people. So cost-wise for us, it's just something else to if the financial forum is touching on Killam, the school committee will probably be going over that.
Yep. No, thanks. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Mark, anything from you?
Yeah, I was sat in on the audit committee meeting from the
Thank you.
from the
I would
28th.
have forgot to bring it
You
up.
were
so
there
thank you.
too, I think.
I was there, but I wasn't planning on talking about it. So good. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Melanson presented, very happy with the results and very complimentary of Sharon, so raved about her. And just, they pick a couple of areas to look at in the next audit, so they're gonna look at athletics and police, just procedures. And other than that, nothing really exciting out of that.
Jean?
Nothing.
Joe?
Nothing.
Emily? I like the sound of the table. Way to go. Keep us on schedule. Actually, the only thing I reiterate, like that from the audit committee, it's my second or third one of those, and the one thing that actually came out of it, I think I have my notes, but we talk about the AAA bond rating quite a bit, and so one of the questions that I get a chance to ask them is how rare is it in Mass to have that, and it's only like 30 or I think they said it was only like 30 different communities in Mass.
For AAA?
Yeah, for AAA rated. So which is, again, I kind of took that as
Less than 10.
it was less than 10%. That's right. It was less than 10% that were AAA rated. So, which was, I thought that was an interesting tidbit, and and again, it kind of goes to a lot of the policies that we have in place, and more so the execution of it. So again, kudos to you, Sharon, and Fidel and the rest of the staff. But that was one of the big takeaways that I had from it. But everything else was, a lot of the review was just kind of confirming what we know in practice, you know, and as far, but hearing it from from a third party that does it it's gratifying to see. I mean, as gratifying as an audit committee meeting can be. Okay, with that, we'll move on. So the next item on the agenda was talking about the FY23 meeting schedule. And Jackie, thanks so much for including in the packet last year's meeting schedule. I guess just to be able to kind of start out, I know that for the upcoming meetings for us, we're gonna have two financial forums. The first one will be on the 21st of September. That's where we're inviting Sean Cronin. I was gonna say Casey, I don't know why I had baseball in mind. Sean Cronin to come in and talk about municipal finance and school building projects. We can talk more about that in a minute, but that's the first financial forum on the 21st. And then we talked about having, between Fidel and I, about having a second financial forum October 26th. And then my one of the questions that I had is that town meeting, does that start on the 7th?
November 14th.
14th, okay. And again, I know this is something that I don't think typically the schedule gets pushed to us to some degree, but it probably makes sense for us to have something earmarked right before the 14th, just in case we have to, any kind of late changes or anything that we have to approve from a warrant perspective. Everything that we would do for warrant articles, we should be able to get done. Does the 26th, at that financial forum, does that give us enough time to approve all for printing and everything else? I know that I'm having, kind of flashbacks to like making sure that we give ourselves enough lead time.
Yeah,
Does the 26th do that?
that should be fine. We are doing a preview of the town meeting warrants on August 30th to the select board. I think we're pretty much finalized though. That there are 18 articles as of now. The financial articles are we are going to propose some amendments to the capital plan, which we'll talk about tonight, and obviously we'll continue talking about it. We will propose some changes to the FY23 budget. Approve payment of prior year's bills is usually tabled. I don't think
I don't have any yet.
we have any for
Let's
that.
hope I don't get any.
There's we are going to ask FinCom to do a vote and report on the $2.2 million request for the Killam School. Right. We are also going to ask FinCom to report on some tax abatements. So the senior tax break was approved for a 3-year period, and it was approved in 2019. So it just has to be reapproved. I think it's a formality at this point. I haven't heard any concerns about that. It's working great. And then tonight on your agenda, we're going to talk about the modifications to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which we're going to ask FinCom to report on, and then there's a few items with regards to debt authorization, which we'll talk about as well.
So so from a timing perspective, for us to be able to do that, so if you're doing that on the 30th, and again, we've typically done where we've kind of done our review and vote on the FinCom articles after a forum. We could always do that after the first one. I'm just super conscious about like making sure that we give you enough lead time. So if it makes sense to do it on the 17th, that's fine, or if you need the time to bleed into, and obviously we can meet we could probably meet in between the financial forums too. I just manage us the best way. Oh, go ahead.
I had a question when you're done.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there gonna be anything on the warrant regarding any kind of feasibility studies for the senior center? I know that the things are in flux with the Walgreens, but RAC had approved $300K towards some study, so I didn't know if that was coming in this fall, if the survey was done.
So the select board is gonna put an item to purchase real estate. If we get a good response on the RFP that's out on the street right now.
So it's changing the direction then of maybe what we thought before, so will the money that was appropriated from RAC get applied towards that, or
That
if
is-
it's not
that-
gonna go towards a study or
That
come
is
back?
the intention, correct. That is the intention.
Sorry, I'm deviating a little from FinCom, but
No, that's not.
I was expecting to hear about that on the warrant or something.
Yeah.
But purchasing real, it's the same purpose, thank you.
Yeah, we've got an RFP out, that is due on, the first week of September. You know, we hope that some properties respond that are attractive. And we put it as, put it in as a placeholder right now in the warrant, assuming that things work out. If for some reason it doesn't work out, we will just, table the article.
Great, thank you.
Do you have any like a rough idea on the range, like 5 million, 20 million?
Between a little and a lot.
Okay.
It's a great range. Very.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's an RFP process, it's a public, you know, process, yeah. I'm not sure that I could answer any
It'll be designed to make the school ask if 2.2 mil look good.
Yes. It will not, it will be more than $2.2 million.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Good, Jim.
I think you can answer this one. So if this would be potentially a request to purchase real estate, and it's, I don't know if you can speak to it, would it be a debt request?
So Sharon and I talked about this quite a bit. It ties into the capital plan. We think that we could not do it inside the levy. Because if we were to do it inside the levy, it would just add a lot of burden to the other things that we've been talking about for a long time. Birch Meadows, you know, I think and FinCom's policy is that anything above $5 million is at least considered for debt exclusion.
So that doesn't surprise me at all. I'm thrilled. I guess the only thing I would say is then we definitely as a group need to each talk about the impact of the capital plan, because I imagine there'd be a sizable impact to the current plan. That's not currently in there, right?
So it wouldn't have an impact because it would be excluded debt. So when we're talking about,
Oh, okay.
meaning asking for a debt
so-
exclusion,
Oh, okay.
if we put it inside the levy, absolutely it would have an impact.
Like with the 18,000 rent, if we didn't get what we wanted from the RFP and the 18,000 a month rent is on the table, that's a capital expense?
No,
No,
that would be
that's
an
a-
operational.
That's an operational
That
expense.
would
But
have to be
still
clear impact.
in the levy.
But it would affect the operating budget for sure. But when we're talking about a building, purchasing this type of real estate, it just, I think it's anything over 4 or 5 million, FinCom had advised us to entertain excluded debt, because anything that large can really have a huge impact on what we're able to do.
That was exactly what I was thinking, is that would be a substantial impact. Okay, so bottom line is any impact it's gonna have on the capital plan, if any, we need to discuss before town.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I'm sorry, but to that point, obviously, whatever we buy, hopefully would need improvements, right? So that'd be, you know, so that'd be capital, I'm assuming.
That includes the 300,000 from ARPA for design work.
Yeah, so the select board approved $250,000 for rental space, right? And then an additional $300,000 to do a feasibility study of a new site, right? So obviously, if we go in that direction, we wouldn't need either. We wouldn't need the $250,000 for lease space, nor would we need to do a feasibility study. It would be more like a design package of that property, should it come to fruition.
So I guess we're thinking the same thing, what does that mean to the RAC, the 300?
I guess technically, we don't know, does that money then come back to RAC and then get reappropriated for the design study, or do we all say, I guess that's a topic to have at our meeting, whether it's the purpose was the same, we said, well, it's a study for a new senior center, but now it's a design study on a property we're buying for the senior center, is the net intent the same? It probably,
I would agree with you.
yeah, it's different. The Yeah, it's ultimately we recommend to the select board, but we'd wanna know though if the money, we're making our new recommendations, so we'd wanna know if the money was coming back.
Yeah, and the improvements would be lumped into the purchase price and would go together in one request for that.
So circling back just to the agenda, not to the agenda, the meeting schedule, sorry. So I don't know if this is a question for you, Fidel, or for Jackie. Do we have, kind of a template to go off of for, kind of meeting schedule, or is this kind of something for us to be able to design? I just seem to recall that we just had meetings and we didn't have to set dates. Am I wrong about that?
No, I think you're right.
Yeah, so, I don't know if this is Fidel just trying to pawn this off on us. No, I'm just kidding.
So we put a schedule together for the select board and so we would be more than happy to do that.
I co-sign on that,
I agree.
yeah, exactly.
Tell us what you need from us.
Me chasing dates is not gonna be a
Because then
good
we end up
idea.
having to sit in on select board meetings in it anyway, so they were already all set.
That's right. All right, good, so then, and again, I think the one, kind of point, if there's, over a, kind of a normal meeting schedule, there's a lot that's, we've talked about it in the last couple meetings, and I know there's been a lot of movement. There's a lot of things for November. So if we need to, if we need to do one or two more, meetings, similar to what we would do in a budget cycle, there's just a lot to chew on for this upcoming town meeting. So happy to be able to do, and that, I think that allows us to be probably just a little bit more manageable, and it gives us some time to digest it too, just instead of all doing it, trying to rip it off at the end of a financial forum or in just our one meeting, so. All right, good. All right, so that's where we are. Any other questions on the meeting schedule or? Good, Joe.
Question of the schedule for the schedule, when will we know what our meeting schedule is?
I will share it in the next week.
That works for me.
Sounds good, thank you.
Isn't September 21st is already decided?
September 21st is already decided. We don't have another one scheduled before that time. So our next meeting is the 21st. And then there may be, depending on how we look at it, there may be one in between the 21st and October 26th, given all of the stuff that's on the.
And potentially one, maybe like the week before the town meeting.
Yep, that sounds good. All right, so we'll move on to the next item, which is hopefully this is the last time we can have this one on the agenda. I keep on punting this one because Jean's not been here. Communication policy, and I guess the one question that I had too, and I think everyone knows this better than I do, so my apologies for asking this question again. Through the website, what do we need to have on there? So we can have our email addresses on there, we can not have our email addresses on there. That's basically what the town clerk form was about.
I think she links it to us, if I go by like how we have it on RAC,
Yep.
our names are there and you can contact the person and then I get it at my personal email address.
But folks don't see your personal.
Right, they have to fill out a form.
You respond directly back to them, and
Yes.
obviously they're gonna see it, but they won't see it otherwise.
Which is, yeah, I think that's
Is it okay if I chime in on that one?
absolutely, Jackie.
Sure, so it's just a contact form through the website, and it goes to whatever email address you have on file with the clerk's office. I know some folks have separate email addresses specifically for FinCom, and those are what the clerk knows that you prefer. So if there is a preferred email address, please let her and me know, and we'll make sure that the contact form goes to that email address. So the people don't see your email address unless you reply to them. But if it's something that staff can handle, you can just forward it to staff for us to respond, and they'll never see your email address.
Yeah, no, I think, well, I am only gonna speak for myself. I'm okay if I reply that people get it. I just don't want it brought, I don't want it on the website you know, I'll put it on my own website, I just don't need it on the town's one, as far as that goes, but.
I think they're already on the hotel website, just wanna,
I'm not seeing them.
I'm
So-
saying,
I haven't activated them yet.
So, yeah,
I
when
think
I'm
they're
looking
all
at the
paid.
town website here, I don't see the link underneath for contact whoever, our names are here.
Yeah, there's no
I can
link.
turn that on easily though.
And then there's a link at the top, like contact the finance committee, which might be the one that email the finance committee, rather that goes to Sharon.
Goes to Sharon.
maybe this is all, I went into the liaison.
Yeah, the liaison has all our info
Has
on
not
the
been updated,
archive.
okay.
Liaison, is that still, let me see,
I just went into
Jade
it,
is
so.
on it.
yeah, I have to download it, but.
So am I understanding the question is, do we want our names to be sort of hyperlinked and someone could email Joseph Carnahan or Jeffrey Coro individually? Is that the question we're discussing?
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of a situation where, I mean, the public has a right to reach out to any of us, of course, but I sort of like getting committee communications, like if somebody wants to reach out to me as just me as an individual, they don't need to go through the website. If they're coming to me or any of you as a FinCom member, I sort of would like to have that be a group.
Didn't it used to go to you, Sharon, and then you send it to
It
us?
still does, yeah.
That's what it is
That-
right now.
That's what it should be, I think.
It's just sometimes like recall when you got the, something advocating some spend and you didn't know,
I didn't
What
know
it
where it
was.
came from, like I didn't understand what she was asking. I don't remember what it was though. You had mentioned
I'm
it
trying to
me.
remember too, now I don't know if it was a special ed spend, no, it was
I think
full day
a
kindergarten.
petition.
Yeah, the
think
It was
kindergarten.
it was like a survey or a petition or something
kindergarten
that I was
one.
afraid to hit the link to see what it was, and then it ended up being something that had come through.
I just have a feeling maybe after the financial forum, when the Killam costs come up, we may be getting emails or it's really not up to us.
and I'm fine, and I can only say this because I'm chair now, but I'm fine with it coming to the chair.
That
What
makes
what I
sense.
like is both. Could you have it so that contact the finance committee and that goes to both Sharon, so staff has eyes on it, but also the chair, so our chair has eyes on it. And then you two can decide, is this something that should be communicated out to the whole committee, or is it just a request? Sharon, I think you said in the past, most of them are requests for information,
Yeah, and they usually would come to me and
which
we
the
would
committee,
never
you know,
see
someone
them.
wants to know what the salary line item was in 2017, we don't need to see
Yeah,
that.
most things coming in are requests for information.
But that way you and Ed can kind of discuss, does the whole committee need to see this, or is this just something Sharon can handle? I think that's my
Is
instinct.
it other boards trying to contact the chair and vice chair and they know how to get, they all know how to get in touch with you?
They already have the hotline, yeah, so yeah, they're not shy. Yeah, so that part of it, you know, inter-committee, that part of it is, you know, kind of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there is a loophole, and I think Mark caught it. If you click on liaisons on the page, it's got all your contact information.
Yeah,
name,
I have that
address,
hanging on my
number.
wall,
Yeah.
so.
It's the old
Yeah, so
yeah.
if you're comfortable with that, that's fine. But that's kind of like defeats the
But
purpose.
that's not updated anyways, it doesn't,
You're right.
you know, like Joe.
Yeah, man, so y'all are in trouble, but Emily and I are fine.
Yeah, we're fine, we're good to go.
Is that some, I mean, and again, at least from my perspective, I would prefer that we remove it. If we now have a new policy that, you know, that's kind of dictated through the new website, then I'd request to remove it.
Remove that list, you're saying?
Not the list, I think people should know who the contacts are, but move our personal contact
Personal
information.
Yes.
So I shouldn't be able to see who's the liaison to the school committee, who's the liaison. I think I'm tending to agree with you because I'm looking at, we'll use Eric, because he's not on the committee anymore.
Yep.
Like Eric was the liaison to DPW. Under what circumstance would somebody from the community want to talk to a liaison for, like, if you have a question about DPW, you should be
Yeah.
talking to DPW. If you have a question for FinCom, you should be talking to FinCom. But a liaison is only supposed to attend meetings and bring the information back.
Right.
None of us are supposed to be speaking for these other groups.
Yep. Yeah, so if we could parse out I'm happy to parse out that, I mean, and that was liaisons for, so that needs to be updated anyways, because it's FY '22 versus '23.
And just so you know, all of our addresses are on the, if
Yep.
you click, there's a link to all the boards and committees and then all of our addresses are at least there, if not our contact info, so that info is out, like the 10-page thing that Laura
Some
has of all the
liaisons.
boards.
Yeah, I don't answer my mail anyways, that's fine.
Some days.
I don't answer my door.
Not his cell
That's fine.
phone, no.
Would it be possible on the liaison sheet to remove our individual phone numbers and email address, but at the bottom put, if you want to contact the finance committee, click here, and it would be the link that goes to you, just so that if someone for some reason did want to, they have a vehicle to be in touch. And then the chair could be like, yes, this is the 1 in a million chance where you do need to talk to the liaison to public safety and connect those two.
Congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. Jean said it would never happen. But I do like some, on any communication, like how to reach us, seems smart.
And since we're just talking about liaisons, just as a quick aside, just to let everyone else know, I know it's in our minutes, but I've reached out to both the select board and the school committee chair and just let them know who our liaisons are. I'll do the same thing for our MLD as well. Everyone else is town department, so I think that one's will kind of come back through us when there actually is a need for it, but there's not necessarily someone to alert who our liaison is. Cool. Any other kind of questions or comments on the communication policy or contact information?
Just one question I have is like if everybody member of FinCom got a town email address, similar to what's on there, does that make sense? So that somebody could and that just gets forwarded to your personal?
Yeah, I don't have.
I think they have to pay for all the town addresses, and they made a choice for how many they were gonna do.
It's that and also, managing passwords and managing,
More of it is admin, alright.
Imagine with turnover on boards too, you're constantly removing an address, adding an address.
Alright.
We don't typically get loads of email correspondence historically, right?
No.
I think there are other boards who have to worry a little bit more about that.
I mean, we might be a big deal soon, so I mean, you never know.
We were anticipating.
We're anticipating an influx.
That we're being asked to
Big
hand out
deal.
money. Brad gets a lot of emails.
I bet you, I mean.
But it's because they were all like, oh,
this.
this is on the agenda, we all support giving money towards this or something, those kinds of things.
Yeah,
It's
we're not
like-
handing out
It's like
money.
being in Congress and
I think that's why, because we're not handing out any money.
Exactly.
Yeah, if we were handing out money,
Gets a lot of correspondence.
Yeah.
the
And the
deli
select board
counter would be
doesn't-
ripping through.
Yep, share it all, but anyone can get FOIA it, so.
All right, perfect. All right, so then let's move on to the next agenda item. So that it's the financial forum to discuss that.
Yeah.
So in the packet, and this is for the one on the 21st. So I believe it was Karen that attended a session with Sean Cronin. It was about municipal finance, kind of like municipal finance, I wanna say 101, that's probably wrong. But like municipal finance 101 and school building projects. And I know both Sharon and Fidel have both know Sean, kind of from a similar context. And, after kind of discussing it, I just think that would be a great, kind of precursor for just to kind of level set, for all of us in that setting, especially around the school building projects. But I'm sure even the municipal finance piece is going to be, informative. But given what we have kind of coming up with Killam, I just think it would just could be time well spent to do that ahead of our larger discussion, and that would be, which would be the second financial forum, kind of talking about, kind of projects and operating budgets and capital plans and everything else. So his, the bio was, thanks again, Jackie, for including that in the packet. But that was the kind of the main thing I just wanted to make sure that everyone saw and, kind of understood what the plan was for the 21st. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Ray.
So if he's gonna jump into this, is there gonna be assumption that the public doesn't know like what the school committee already has been doing, and the school committee or someone from it is going to give a mini presentation on here's where we are on the project, like what happened in the last school committee meeting? Those of us who watched it know, and we've discussed it here, but if this is a financial forum, I mean, the three major boards in town know, but if the public comes, is there gonna be
Yeah,
any
so I
update
think,
from the schools
so
too?
I think, I don't know if that happens after Sean speaks on the 21st. I think that's probably where we, probably want to discuss what we want to have as far as the agenda. Whether they do that as part of the 21st, or do we do everything, do his piece on the 21st, and then we save all that for the for the October financial forum.
Do you know how long he's gonna speak for? Cause that is part of my answer.
I think it'll be less than an hour.
I would think so.
So then we have enough time.
I think so.
Yeah, then we have enough time to have, because I think that's, you know, what I was, you know, kind of trying to be able to, or at least to kind of think through was, I like us having multiple forums where we can have one where we get information, we get some time to process it, and then we have a, you know, then there's more to be able to kind of, sometimes I feel like we're a little bit rushed and we kind of do things on a superficial basis and we don't get very deep. And so I was hoping that this would allow us to be able to get a little bit deeper. Again, given that there's unprecedentedly so many things going on, you know, with RAC and with grants and projects and free cash and everything else that's out there. There's just a lot on the plate, and I figured that was my thought process.
So this is like the school, you visit this is the school's night.
I think, I mean, I don't think it necessarily, I don't think it necessarily has to be the schools, Marion. I
The
think
school
it's,
project.
I don't think it all has to be. I mean, I think it lays a good groundwork for schools. But I don't think we need to devote the whole night to that. And again, I think there's enough time that we could, you know, kind of have, you know, kind of an outline of a discussion, whether it's, you know, starting with the schools, but also heading, you know, from the town, or whether that's select board or town, school committee or superintendent. But having, you know, some kind of an overview where we're talking about priorities, talking about, you know, kind of funding mechanisms, thought process around that. I think that would be beneficial, and then we can dig into that more. You know, because I think when we all hear that, or actually I should speak for myself. When I hear all that, I just hear it, and I don't get a chance to really dig into it and do anything with it when we first get it. And so I just think, just how my brain works, it would be good to be able to take that, you know, and then think about it, and then, you know, start to help with the prioritization and, you know, kind of asking probably better questions about it, you know, after the fact. But that's just, you know, again, just one man's opinion.
Could we work backwards a little bit? I'm trying to figure out what before town meeting do you need FinCom to do, like what actions? We need to give free cash guidance, for instance. I think that's the only guidance we give that directly impacts budget guidance to the schools in the town. Is
Helps
that
us
correct?
start the budget process,
So
yeah,
one question I have about.
usually it's like the first or the second. Sometimes we only have one finance forum, in that case you would give it that day, usually it's the second.
And that was my question. Does it help you and the schools to have that guidance in September, or can you wait till October?
September, but, I mean, whenever you can get to it, but I think September would be most helpful. The earlier we have it, the more time we have to build budgets. I mean, your guidance actually starts the process really. So the earlier we get started, the better, I guess is the way.
But I think also, in order for us to give guidance, it's good to know the whole book.
Right.
Like all of the things that are on the table, as it relates to, you know, again, everything that's out there, you know, kind of capital and everything else, to know what's competing for it, so that we can give kind of proper guidance. I mean, I think, again, a lot of the discussions that we have about giving guidance, it's a back and forth, you know, like we're seeing this is what, you know, what typically, you know, we hear, and then we debate that piece of it. But it would be good to have that in context of, there's a lot of observations that are out there. I know we'll talk about capital and, you know, and the impacts of inflation on capital. So I think there's a lot of those impacts, I think, and maybe we get through some of that tonight, and that helps inform us, you know, for the financial forum too. I just, you know, as far as giving that guidance, but that's just, you know,
So you're thinking more get some information in September, give the guidance in October.
up until Sharon saying that she wanted it in September, that's what I was thinking.
October's fine. When is our second one? Is it gonna?
October 26th.
It's later.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, it is a little late, but I mean, I think we've gotten it that late before. I mean, I think what usually happens is, we can start working and then we adjust our path if you gave us a different number. Do you know, like, so Bob would give us, you know, in the past, he'd say, well, I'm looking at an operating budget of 3%, start building at 3%. And if you gave us a little bit more, then he'd have us adjust. So it's not like we couldn't start. So don't feel pressure to give it in September. We certainly could work with it in October, but it'd be nice to get a feel for how worried you are about the use of free cash, or how, you know what I mean? It'd be nice to know like where you're at with it. If you're thinking at least what we did last year, maybe a little bit more, you know, or something like that, that would be a good idea to know. But you wouldn't have to have a definitive answer. We could just start building it, you know, whatever. I think I started with a 3% operating budget to build.
So I see a potential solution that will be deeply unpopular. But I mean, I'm hearing about like I kind of hate making you wait till the end of October for us to take 8 weeks to make a decision. But I also completely hear what you're saying, which is I agree with you. It's one of the biggest votes we take. And I don't want to be like, all right, we heard everything, tonight's the night, let's make a vote. We could do a finance committee meeting right in the middle. So do financial form 1, take the time to digest, ask questions, work with staff. 2 weeks later, give guidance, and then do the second financial form. Just a thought.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, it'll be a light agenda for that meeting.
Yeah.
The one question that I had, but just for anybody else, when does free cash get certified? That actually would dovetail with that idea.
September or like early October. It really depends on DOR.
Gotcha.
You know, and we need it for November town meeting, so we'll be, you know, sometimes they'll push us aside because we say we don't need it for November town meeting, but because we're planning to ask for use in November, they will put it at the top of the list, I think.
So just thinking back, you know, kind of historically, we've not necessarily known, free cash wasn't certified when we gave guidance.
I could give you, I think in the past, if I didn't have it certified, I'd give you an estimate of what I think it's going to be, because I calculate it before they do, so, and usually our numbers are very close. So I could give you an idea of what I think the number is at Finance Forum. The other thing we normally tend to do is like give you revenue projections, and we go over accommodated cost, and accommodated cost is, you know, capital, debt, all those categories come under accommodated cost. So the way we build our budget is we project our revenue, and then we look at the accommodated costs, and then we back them out, and that's how we figure out how much the operating budgets can go up. And so you could get something of a review of that at that first finance forum, if that would be helpful.
That would be really helpful.
I think that's what we normally do. I normally give you, if I have it, free cash numbers certified or an estimate of what I think free cash is going to look like. And then we give you the revenue projections, the accommodated cost, and then kind of having an idea what free cash is, whether it be certified or estimated. That helps you start thinking about, do I feel comfortable with the level that's being proposed for a 3% operating budget or for a 3.5% operating budget? And we usually give you some idea of what it would cost you in free cash to get to the different levels.
Yep. That for me, that would be super helpful.
Just a thought on this, in the event that we decided to give guidance without an actual DOR certification, I'm sure we can structure a vote such that, you know, we are recommending this level of free cash usage pending a DOR recommendation of free cash certification of at least
this,
fill
like
in
in
the
case
blank.
there's some major error.
In case there's a huge error and you have to get in touch with us a week later and say, we have significantly less than we thought, which has never happened, but that would be sort of the safety net for us to say, oh, we have to regroup, but assuming everything tracks.
And then, and one of the other things you mentioned was what we did last year. Last year was 3.85. Was that what we did last year?
It was a higher than usual number. But I think we used the 2,750,000 for free cash, and so we were at high levels of free cash as well, so that's something to consider, so.
I believe a good chunk of that was capital.
Yeah,
That
because
was
we were
not all operating budget support.
No, because we were doing the additional 5.5% for capital debt, so, and we are planning that for fiscal '24 as well, so I think
Also,
keeping.
we probably
yeah.
look similar.
So I mean, and we've talked about, and when we get to it,
Yep.
the potential of pushing that out another year, so that we're not slowing down our capital, because of inflation, because the cost of a lot of these things have gone up. And some of these things are really hard to move because they've been moving, and some things are gonna fail if you push them out, so you don't want that, so if we have the free cash, sometimes capital is a great place to use it, and so, but it's really all your judgment call, so.
Sorry, I asked a ton of questions there, so I'm sure you guys have some. Go ahead.
Just quickly, I mean, I defer to Mary Ann, but I'm just thinking of like RAC too, in terms of like an input into use of free cash, because there's probably gonna be a lot of rollover things too, you know, that aren't in the capital plan and that are being tossed out, well, maybe free cash will take care of it, right? So,
Well,
and that's probably gonna go into like October based on the current schedule, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had thought we were having August 31st and September 6th, and then depending on if we recommend anything, October 12th, being aware that there's FinCom. I mean, RAC money is outside the budget, but I guess as part of a financial forum, you know, we could present a couple of slides, so this is what's been happening with this money. I figured the financial forum always includes at least sort of an overview of the money happenings in the town, and this is a 7.5 million money happening in the town. It's outside the
I think
budget.
people are very
Right.
interested in it.
without a doubt, so I
So
again,
we could, I
yeah.
could just be a high level, here's what we started with, here's what we've allocated, and, you know,
Here's
I
where
think
we're
we
at in
could-
the process.
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 slides at
Yeah.
the most.
At least from at least from my perspective, you know, whether it's done at the select board level, the school committee level, at the RAC level, we should hear, I would fully expect, I'd be disappointed if we didn't have that level of
I think it's important.
you know,
Yeah, cause it's
Just because
outside
we've
the
got all
budget.
the boards present too, so that information's getting,
Exactly.
not
Well,
just the
everyone
residents,
knows.
but all the boards would be present for that.
Yeah, cause it, you know, a lot of them have been requesting, hopefully by the forum, we would have already got to our final point, I don't know, you know, we kinda had,
Right?
we hope. We're still,
Those late night meetings.
we're waiting for, you know, Tom Wise, who is in Greece, and
Oh, is that what he is?
Sean Brandt, he finally took a vacation, they're kind of come back with their magic formula to allocate to the
Premium
premium
pay,
pay maybe.
so yeah, so I think that's that I think that would be really helpful, cause I think that's a huge component of all of the interest and everything, that there's a lot of moving parts. And Joe, to your point, Marion, to your point, a lot of what happens, the impacts to free cash, some things may get freed up because of what's gonna happen, you know, with the ARPA funds. And I don't think it'll go the other way, but it will at least, I think the process too, and I think that would be, you know, at least from my perspective, my input, having an idea of all of the things that, you know, were on the table, whether they were allocated or not. I think that's also, you know, interesting because some of those things haven't appeared on any.
Yeah, and like some things that might get allocated are on the capital plan, for example, like Birch Meadow, where most of the RAC seems to be united. We haven't taken a vote yet, and the select board has to do it, but that's something that will come off the capital. But then someone may say, well, gee, you've done this much, maybe let's just do the last couple of things and finish off this part of Birch Meadow in the capital, or not.
That's perfect. And that actually answered one of the questions I had written to myself, is when the next RAC meeting was. So thank you for that. On this, you said the 6th, right?
August 31st and then the 6th.
Oh,
They're they're close to each other.
Yep.
But we wanted to just,
Perfect, thank you.
I have a question
Close
about the RAC presentation. Would we be putting together the slides and presenting them, or would you be putting together the slides and presenting for RAC?
I guess I can put them together.
It doesn't matter to me either way, I just wanna make sure that I don't drop the ball.
Yeah, no, I would be planning on putting them together, not maybe the elaborate spreadsheet like we've had at the meetings, but the simplified high level with some bullet points, and maybe a portion of it just so people understand how many requests we got requests for like 18 million, you know, lots of requests, but you can't fund it all. But then that becomes, between that and the survey, you have a sense of community priorities for that money and maybe priorities in general, though people can want things, but inflation changes that, and to me, you do what you have to do first. So if I'm preparing the slides and I can work with Mark, my vice chair, Mark Doxer, on this, does anyone want to see them before input to financial forum, or we'll just,
I don't need to,
I can share them with,
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I'd love to look at them, but you know, I don't need, you know, I don't feel, it's not an obligation.
And that's gonna be presented to town meeting too.
I don't know.
Probably just the financial forum.
Now, that's an interesting thing, people are interested.
It could just.
Well, let's see where it
when they
goes from
do-
financial forum to there. Yeah, let's see where it goes from
Yeah,
financial
let's
forum,
just-
and then we'll see, you know, again, what kind of shakes out, because, you know, again, a lot of what might dictate that is depending on what's related to the awards. Like, so if there's something that's, then that, it might trickle over that.
Yeah, I don't know if that isn't when the select board, like someone does a year, you know, they do a year in review of the
That's the April one.
schools. Does the select board, somebody from the
I would
select board
think
do
they
it?
mentioned that, I mean, because it's a big piece, that would be something that.
Cause the select board can say, using RAC, this is what we granted, I mean, they could, for town meeting, they
And they could say
do
what
it as
they-
part of
what
their
they awarded,
speech.
yeah.
Do video, Mary.
No, push it off to the select board chair, he's the vice chair of RAC, so he can.
Oh, Mark, yeah.
I think maybe Sharon could take a peek at the slides before the financial forum, just for like a check.
Yeah, to make
Yeah.
sure I agree with the numbers and stuff,
add
yeah.
up, exactly.
Any other kind of questions on financial forum and agenda?
I do.
Yeah,
You probably already said it and I might have missed it. So you do plan on the September 21st doing, sharing the projected revenues, projected budget increases. I think you usually assume free cash is flat from the year before, that's sort of the starting place.
Yep.
So you will share some of that to inform the discussion.
Mhm.
Okay, perfect.
And if I have an estimate ready, I'll give you an estimate.
Awesome, thanks.
Sometimes too, like when we have the numbers for free cash, we even talk about, you know, what we might be doing to adjust our revenue projections based on what we saw too. Sometimes we'll do that if we see some significant areas of, you know, high regeneration that we feel like we've got extra somewhere, or that we need to be changing our number. If we've kind of had a number come in way lower, we wanna make sure that in November or we're adjusting that revenue projection so that it's not too high or too low.
Basically asking for exactly what you do every year, which is here are the numbers and here are where we're seeing swings. Like this is a little higher than you might expect, this is a little lower, yeah, exactly. I think that'd be great.
That would be terrific, yeah, and again, I think giving it that to us on the 21st, and then giving us some time to be able to kind of like, just give at least the appearance of thoughtful guidance.
Digest.
The appearance of.
Whether we do anything with it or not, that, you know, that's to be seen. All right, great, any other questions on financial forum agendas?
Just, that'll be at the library, probably?
At the school library.
School library for the, yeah,
Oh,
that's why I thought you asked.
Wow, I know that you changed it, but I almost forgot about that, I'm glad
Library.
you just said that. I'd be at the wrong place.
the 21st, it's the school.
School library, yep,
I don't even know where the
Yeah,
library
I-
is anymore.
The school library.
The school library, is it on it's on the second floor, right?
second floor, yeah.
You can drive
So if you're like where you go to the tent meeting right upstairs.
It's right above the
right
pack.
it, yeah.
We're right, you're right around, you go in the packet.
Way different than when I went there.
For sure.
Cool, all right, well, let's move on to the next one. The next one is the just have a, you know, kind of a, I don't know, just a brief, you know, kind of update for the committee on something from the select board meeting on the 19th of July, where they were talking about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So
Yeah.
I don't have anything else besides that agenda item.
Jackie, I don't know if you put it in the packet, and we can pull it up. But there was an instructional motion in town meeting in April for us to basically relook at the structure of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. How it is right now, it's essentially it's a just like every of our trust funds, and it's governed by the select board and the Housing Authority Board. So they have to come together and do a spending plan, and then that spending plan has to be approved by town meeting. And any deviations from that spending plan have to approve by town meeting. So it's just it's kind of clunky. It's we haven't presented a spending plan since my understanding since 30 Haven was built. So you know it's not doing anything essentially. So Reading adopted this in 2001 prior to the state law passing section 55 of chapter 44, which essentially allows towns to have a board like FinCom, right? And this board would basically designate what the monies in the trust funds will be used for. So We had 2 meetings now on the select board where we went through the change at town meeting, and then there's 3 actions that have to be taken by town meeting. First is we have to repeal what we did in 2001, right? So that has to go away. And then we have to adopt Chapter 44, Section 55C of Mass General Law, which allows us to create this board. And then we have to pass a bylaw of how to govern the board. So in the packet, there's basically the bylaw. We made a few changes. So the bylaw is going to be a member of 5 people. One of those 5 has to be a select board members. They are for 2-year terms, and they are appointed by the select board. And then we added, we want the remaining 4 to have experience in finance, experience in housing, experience in development, experience in these different items. One of the changes that we had is that the governing body is still the select board. So this board can't do anything without getting the select board approval first.
Wasn't there talk, and I might be confusing issues, I recall this meeting, but it might be confusing it. Was there like a threshold that was talked about, like something under a threshold would, or is that part of the update and now it's anything needs to be approved?
Now it's anything, yeah, and we spent a lot of time on that. I mean, like, do we say a percentage? Do we say a dollar amount? The assumption of this is that this board is not dealing with minor acquisitions of like bicycles. If this board is doing anything, it's going to be big. It's going to be buying real property, investing tons of money on something. It's not going to be minor. So we and I think we also talked about the fact that like having the select board tight on the hip, if you will, in the know of everything this board does is important.
So when you mention part of the 5 members, is the thought that one of the members would be from FinCom or just someone that has or outside of FinCom that has financial or finance background?
I think it would make a lot of sense for someone from FinCom to be honest. I mean, I personally do. I think the way that we're envisioning it would be similar to like a VASC process, if you will. Like it's a board that people apply to. You get interviewed by the VASC members. That recommendation is approved by the select board, and then you're appointed. That's what we're thinking. Just because you open it up to anyone in that.
Go ahead, I think you're gonna ask the question that I was gonna ask.
Does the town of Reading still have an affordable housing agent? Or I forget that, well, I know a few years ago we had one who passed away and we had to hire one. This was in the budget. Does anyone else here remember this?
So
Would they be on this board or? And I don't know whether they were someone who was checking on our developments, whether, how they posted the lottery to get residents, but I thought we had that position somewhere in the town.
We do, yes. So it's but it's a shared position with 5 communities.
Okay.
And it's part of the there's an acronym, but it's
It reports to the
regional-
state?
Intermunicipal agreement?
exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
like North Shore Housing Coalition or something like that, and it's 5 communities. It's us, Wakefield, Stoneham. That person worked for Reading and worked out of Gene's office for a long time. The last person that had it, her name was Lori Stanton. She retired in June. So we actually we are outsourcing that work now to a nonprofit essentially that is doing that work for
It
that.
just seems like that's what they do all the time, that they would have good input to a board like this.
Yeah.
Especially seeing what other communities are doing, I don't know.
Joe.
And a question about the membership. Sorry, Jeffrey, did you say something?
Yeah, and maybe it's the same question you had as to whether somebody can serve on both finance committee and this other board.
I was
Since
about to-
typically,
That's
you can't do
the
both.
same question
We could
that I
serve,
had.
we could serve on this and RAC, so I guess
Yeah,
it depends
so
on.
an ex officio member, meaning you are there representing this board, you can do both. Indeed, that would be the only way it would work. I was going to ask whether there were ever examples of, because all the other places in town boards where I see ex officio members, the board picks its own representative to the other board. So like the, school committee picks who from school committee is going to be the school committee person on this thing. This sounds like the select board would be picking which member of finance committee was the finance committee person on this thing?
I think we still have to apply.
I don't even think there is a finance committee person on this thing.
Well, okay, well, we were talking about such,
Adding one,
or
yeah, got you.
including one, or.
Sure.
So this would be more like the conservation commission, like it's a standalone thing that does its own thing and has, has some power and, has some entities and is appointed by the select board, right? So this is more like that.
I mean, looking, like, this doesn't say anything about FinCom, which, so as written, there's no problem here, none of us are on this board.
None of you are required to be on the board.
But none of us can be,
Exactly,
by,
exactly.
so.
So what I'm, May?
No, of course.
So what I'm hearing is, I guess the question, so where are we at? Why are we voting on this tonight? Is this,
No.
what's our role in this? Are we just
So-
discussing it?
Yeah, we're just discussing it.
Just discussing it, there are some financial implications, right? Like there's this trust fund money. There's there's a requirement for an audit once a year. I mean, there are some financial components to this fund. But yeah, it is just a discussion.
So this ultimately will go before town meeting,
This will ultimately
and it would be sponsored by the select board.
it will be sponsored by the select board
So
For this November?
for this November.
I wonder how hard it would be to gently suggest or request, if that's the consensus of FinCom, adding that one of the members be an ex officio FinCom member selected by the finance committee. I feel like that's a pretty easy edit, and they may or may not wanna do that, but I do like the idea of a FinCom member having eyes on it, personally.
Agreed.
I don't know if anyone else, like, that's just my take.
No, I agree. Yeah,
I've been just Googling like all the adjacent towns that have their own boards of trustees, and I haven't seen a finance committee member, but I've seen definitely.
Trailblazers, though, Mary Ann.
No, but it doesn't,
might be
it doesn't
really good reason.
necessarily mean like they have, like, for example, Littleton has a select board member, a member of the Littleton Housing Authority, 3 residents with specific experience, somebody with the Council on Aging. Andover has one, like they definitely have designated roles where we can do what we want, but this is something that it seems like a lot of communities do have. It makes sense with, if it's expending money, these other ones I think are managing housing that they have. Like I'm looking
Yeah,
at Arlington, there's another one.
This is, the bylaw is mostly grabbed from chapter 4455C and so I will check with town council too, like how much leeway do we have in terms of.
There may be a really good reason FinCom shouldn't be on it. I'm open to hearing that,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
maybe there's a discussion to be had.
Yeah, it depends on how the charter is going.
And so you're dissolving that, when you said the 3 steps, is there already dollars in existing?
Yeah.
And then you're just gonna port that over, right?
Exactly, there's roughly $473,000, more or less.
Yeah,
or
it's
something.
just under a half of it.
Yeah, so we
That's
would.
is that the same one that we vote on like every year?
Yep.
And they never do anything.
Never do anything with it,
It's just
okay,
sitting
now I
there.
knew
A lot
that
of people
number,
start questioning.
once I heard that number, that's what I remembered, so, okay. Sorry.
That is the one.
Any other questions from anybody on the, go ahead, Joe.
So like ultimately, like the governance hasn't changed, or like the select board would still make the final decision though, right?
So the
Appropriation of funds or.
that is a change that we made. The state law allows this board to act independently, but we thought that the more controls would be better.
Yeah, so that's it, okay. And by the board, hopefully that money finally gets spent or whatever, we get asked for more money at some point, right? So.
We will spend that money, don't we?
Go, Jean.
So I'm looking at, it's XX.5, general duties, and it says that the Board of Trustees shall have the following powers, all of which will be carried in furtherance, blah, blah, blah. Except that the trustees shall obtain prior approval of the select board to borrow money, mortgage or pledge trust assets, purchase, accept, sell, lease, exchange, real estate. So that, I'm a little bit confused. If we're just talking about the 400,000, or however much is in the trust fund, and we're saying town meeting will no longer authorize that, it's for clear use, it's guided by state law, this body will determine how to spend that money. I'm very comfortable with that. I'm a little bit uncomfortable about the select board getting into debt without town meeting's involvement. Am I reading this right or wrong?
No, I mean, that's the role of this law, right? That it's not getting into debt as a private entity, right? Like, it's into debt is on its money, right? I mean, I see what you're saying, like, can the select board now go ahead and buy,
Can they say, yeah, we're gonna buy that for $1 million
building
and
on
we'll
Main
put
Street
it
that
on debt on the town?
No.
We need an authorization to do that.
That's so that line about borrowing money still, it doesn't circumvent town meeting. It's still, that path has to be exercised, even though that's what's written in its general duties. So it's almost like they can recommend to borrow, because the final
It has to
authority
be
of that
authorized.
is gotta go to town meeting.
Town meeting has to authorize all town.
Okay.
Yes, they can't borrow money without select board. They also can't borrow without town meeting either. They actually need both.
That's
Yeah,
it.
but the
Okay,
town
so this
meeting's
doesn't
the highest
remove town
authority.
meeting, it's
Yes,
like an
that's
extra
what
layer.
It's just-
Right.
Okay, so to repeat that back to make sure I understand it, this group could take whatever's in the trust fund and spend it in whatever way they think is best, period,
With select board approval.
with select board approval,
Yes.
and that is that. Anything that involves borrowing money that isn't in there has to go through town meeting.
Has to go to select board and then go to town meeting.
Correct.
So if they needed supplemental funds to buy something, let's say they use what's in the trust, they would need town meeting to approve whatever it is, whether it came from debt or free cash or whatever.
That's great, thank you.
Any other questions from anybody on that one? Thanks, Vanel, for that feedback, and that overview.
This is gonna get a lot of town meeting talk.
Whole night right there.
Yeah.
Some bylaw stuff too, I can't wait for that, that's gonna be nice. Good luck, we're gonna save that to the end again? That would be good, if we can save that to the end.
2 nights.
Two nights of bylaws. I'm sure, hopefully this is not, hopefully they cut the broadcast about right at that section. I'm gonna get myself into trouble. All right, so let's move on to the next one. And this one was just to have a kind of a preliminary review and discussion around the FY '24 capital plan. I think Sharon, that's what you gave us, right? As
Yeah, and I made an adjustment to it today, so what, the most up-to-date one is on the screen.
Gotcha.
It's only a small change,
The font is
I
very.
had spoke to Joe Huggins today because he had gone to the school committee and there was something that we'd moved out. I wanna say it was cards for the schools, like some sort of security cards, that they wanted it to be next year, so I moved them into fiscal
That was-
24.
Yeah, card reader access for more drawers.
Yeah, so I don't think that Joe had made it clear to me that that's something he wanted for next year. I think he said where you can fit it. But I think that the school committee made it clear they wanted it in fiscal 24. So I moved it in there, so these numbers on fiscal 24 have changed by $65,000. So we're right at 5.5 for 2024. So normally we would have been at 2,504,000, but we're adding 590 to bring us to the 5.5% of our overall budget for capital. And when you back out the net debt. So some of the things that we are planning to do at November town meeting is one of the things to try and make these numbers smaller in fiscal 24 and 25 is to move something up with some savings that we can find in our current year budget for firearms. I think the police officers, when they came to sit with us for capital, had asked to add replacement firearms because they hadn't bought them in like 13 or 14 years. And their firearms are so old that you can't even buy parts for them anymore. So, but they're gonna get some good resale on those firearms because they need them for parts. So that's a good thing. But so what I was thinking that was a good thing at 100,000 to move into November town meeting if I can make everything work, which it seems like I'll be able to. That way that's not showing up in 24 or 25, and if where we can, we try and push some of the capital into the current year if we find savings in different areas. So that was what I did there. I did have on the capital plan prior the Parker roof. Let me find that on line 73 here. That's a $500,000 borrowing that we're thinking to do because we do have to borrow for the water tank because we have a ban out there. So we're gonna have to borrow, and when you're borrowing, it's pretty expensive to borrow, but you get better rates if it's a larger package, and $2 million isn't considered very much. So we thought this 500,000 coupled with the sustainability money, I think it was, for 1 million, was it 750 for the design?
750.
So we were gonna add a few things in to get us closer to that $5 million mark. Normally, we would not borrow 500,000, but we are asking for $2.2 million at November town meeting for Killam, so I figured, we don't wanna ask for any more free cash at that town meeting. So it is on your capital plan, but it is debt that's not authorized debt. That's something that we should be asking for at November town meeting.
The one above that we did already, right?
We did
That's
authorize that, yeah.
that 2.7.
And we actually have the money, but this is kind of a buffer because it's coming in higher.
So that 500 is in addition to the line before, okay.
So I think
that's
the
what-
numbers are coming in high, and this also has more contingency in it, and so that's why we need to do it.
Gotcha.
When would the timing of that be?
It was supposed to be this year, it's,
Yeah,
that-
so
And we already pushed it out once.
We pushed it out.
1 year. We pushed it out 1 year. He basically he got wind that roofers couldn't get materials for a year, right? So he's like, why are we gonna bid it out if we can't even do it for a year? And with school roofs, you basically have July and August, right? So like that's about it. So he is actually putting it out to bid in the next 30 days, and because we do want to have a good number for town meeting. So it would be done next summer.
Yeah, so then you would get that for town meeting for November to tee you up for next July.
Yes.
And when would the debt offering?
December,
December?
because I think that's when we have to roll the ban. I'd rather not roll the ban, I'd rather pay it off, yeah. And so on the screen right now, oh, did you have something? I'm sorry.
What was the amount for the water tank?
$2 million.
2 million plus you're thinking 500K for the Parker roof.
Yep, and then on here I got another one, I think it's sustainability. Let's see, $1 million for sustainability, and is that one too? Downtown improvements, is that the 750?
I don't know that we're ready for that yet.
Okay, so we planned on that, so we were trying to put some stuff together based on what we were planning to potentially borrow, to get us closer to a typical size offering, because something more like the 4 or 5 million would be better than 2 million by itself.
In 15 year, 30 year?
So right now, depending on which it is, like the community sustainability, we have it at 10. You said we're not ready for the downtown improvement thing? No? Okay. And then let me go back up. I think we did 10 for Parker Roof, and do I have the capital plan up here for the water tank? I think 20, yeah. The water tank would be on the capital plan.
So you can put together a package of debt but have different maturities for individual projects.
Yeah, so they can do it for however long we want. I mean, the 500,000, I've got it the same as what we did. The original debt is 10, but we could probably do less because it's such a small offering. So those things are on the capital plan. I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware, even though they were mentioned at school committee, we did know about the Parker roof, and it was on here, and also the 200,000 that we have holding as a placeholder right here for the glycol reclamation and installation. And I have a note to myself that he's concerned about this number. The costs have gone up dramatically, and he's gonna get back to me with this. And this is good that every department head is just engaged in this process, because I wouldn't know that the cost of glycol is going up and down. So we've sat with every department head that has a lot of capital and any capital, and kind of gone over these numbers that were already there and asked them, what do you think, or what are the numbers looking like right now? And then also added anything that's come up that isn't on the plan. Problem is a lot of the things on the capital plan that were there at, the last town meeting have gone up in price significantly. So in order to balance it, what I had to do was, we had planned on fiscal 24 being the last year at 5.5. And as you can see, fiscal 25, when I balanced it, we're at 5.37, so we're looking to continue to do a little bit more than the 5. And any chance I get to move something away from that, like if we have extra money here and there, I'm trying to, I'd like the 100,000 for the firearms. I would try and move it into the previous year as we see savings. But at this point, it looks like we're looking for another year of above 5% for debt and capital. Now, I can obviously shift things around, but some things as you start to look, if you look at this capital plan, you can look at the age of some of the things, especially in DPW, I feel like a lot of their stuff was not very mobile, like we had to leave it alone because it really needed to be replaced. So where are we? They give you the age of their trucks and you're like, wow, okay,
It's time.
it's time, yeah. And so we can move things around here and there, but it gets to be very difficult, especially with some of the age of the items that are looking to be replaced. Well, here we are down here, large trucks. So like in fiscal '24, they have 2 trucks, they're 2008, it's 2024. I mean, you know, they have concerns about, you know, because they've probably been pushed out several times, that they could fail and be expensive repairs. So in some cases, some of these are a struggle for me to move because these are large assets. But I mean, but it's now balancing with this idea of doing the fiscal '25 slightly above 5% or just under 5.5 at, let me go back up, 5.37. And that would mean that we'd be putting in an additional 448, 287 for capital.
Can you just refresh my memory, what was the 1 million of community sustainability? What is community sustainability again?
That's a good question, because
Yeah.
I don't know.
So it was a placeholder that Bob knew that the community had been asking to do something sustainability related, whether it was solar panels on a school, whether it was some form of project around sustainability. So luckily we got a project now.
Which project is that?
Liaison Morgan.
Oh, so that's what that is. I know Liaison's never, say no more. I just didn't know that's what we called it on this. I thought this was some other thing.
That's what it was on the capital plan. I should probably change it now that you know.
You
We
can
should
say
know.
more, cause I don't know.
Okay,
I was
yes.
No, cause no, they came before that.
Please say more.
So Malia, Psalms Morgan is an area that we feel like has a lot of open space potential. It's a wetlands area with a lot of flooding and it's not in great shape. So we actually applied in coming up in our grants discussion. We applied for a $2.1 million grant from the state from the municipal vulnerability preparedness grant. And we got it. So we got $2.1 million from the
See it
state
on here.
over a 2-year period.
I just didn't know it by this name, that's why, okay.
And but it does require a match. So it requires a 25% match. But we do have another request from a federal earmark through Seth Moulton for $1.5 million. So if we do get that $1.5 million, we will not need that $1 million community program.
Nice.
But we just don't know yet. I call him almost daily, and I'm harassing him at this point.
Thank you. We
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Just a question, what's the, why we set aside $1 million for this and the earmark that's being asked for is 1.5, is the one enough?
So one is the minimum, right? So the project as designed, if you will, is $3 million, right? But there's other things that are wrong with the area, like it addresses basically the wetlands. There is a culvert that travels under the train tracks. That's in bad shape, needs to be cleaned. I mean, if we get the $1.5 million earmark, it allows us to do more. Like we had a photo event with the congressman there. It would be nice to have some water features, like a water cooler, right? I mean, like some shade structures. Like it would allow us to do more.
So 1 million is basically the stormwater mitigation, like really functional aspects.
So what do we call this project, so I don't forget?
Mailet, MAILLET / or comma.
It's like Mailet,
Somes,
2 L's.
SOMMES, comma, Morgan.
You can kind of visualize it as going
Sorry,
between
was this
Austin,
Um,
like Austin
Well,
Prep and the train tracks
That's right, yeah.
and Summer
Yeah.
Ave, kind of what's all behind
I
the
know
wind.
right where that is. There, yeah,
Yeah.
huh.
Morgan.
So you know
So
how
at
those
least
big
I'm
floods,
familiar with
the
the
water
project.
comes from this area.
And should I
Absolutely.
So
take
wouldn't
out
it
the
be cool if we
community
caught it first?
sustainability
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
or put community
I used to live
sustainability
right around
in
the
back
corner,
so people know
intimately
that's what
familiar
that
with those
is,
road
or-
bridges.
It made it sound like it could really be a nice new future
Is that a
recreation
property?
area when they presented to it to RAC. And it would also be close to a lot of the affordable housing being built downtown, so walkable from downtown.
Nice, very, very nice. Can I ask another question?
Of course.
I don't wanna ask, but what is your sense of interest rates right now?
No.
I know.
I have no idea what to expect. I mean, like I said, the last time we issued debt, it was under 1%, and now the market is so much higher.
Remember those good old days.
It was 0.87. I'm like, every time we issue, it's lower and lower. I mean, we were getting great rates for years and years and years, and this is gonna be the first time that we're issuing, and I'm not sure, like, what we're gonna get. We haven't started talking to our bonding agent to kind of get a feel for what they're seeing. I think Andrew had asked the question, but I don't remember hearing the answer back, like, where are you seeing municipalities with a AAA bond rating issuing right now? And so that even makes it harder because, you know, we normally would expect a premium and we would be packaging the deal at 3% or 4%. Right now, the interest rates for most people is more than 4%, so it's like it just changes the way everything looks. So it's definitely information that we need to know, like what should we expect for this offering, and also the size of the offering affects what they offer you too. So and it's kind of a small offering, so.
That's what I was actually trying to balance was the like, I understand the desire to get to 4 or 5 to get an attractive rate, but then there's another part of me that's like, we've got free cash. If the interest rates are overly high, you actually don't wanna borrow quite as much, so
True.
I guess this is more of a discussion for when we get there, but those are questions I'm certainly gonna be
In the
asking, is
past,
sort of
when we've
like
had-
explain why you went with a larger number versus a smaller number, why shouldn't we use 500K from free cash for the Parker roof versus filing it with this.
I mean, there's a couple of things at play. The fact that we are looking to take the 2.2 million out of free cash for the kiln.
Yeah.
That's a big ask to ask for more than that at any one town meeting.
And then all the future budget supplementation from the free
Yeah,
cash.
and then the fact
With all
that
the
we're
inflation, that's
balancing,
why I feel like 6
other
million
thing
free cash
to-
is probably gonna
to
go
be
into that.
noting is
Yeah,
that
without a doubt.
we refinance debt just like you would refinance your mortgage, like when we're able to, because there's a time frame that we can't, we would refinance it lower if the rates went down, so we would not leave it at that rate for all that time if we could avoid it. When we were able to do it, we would do it. And also our bonding agent's always looking at that, like, this one's ready, let's do this, you know? So when I first started here, they call it a refunding, but it's essentially a refinancing of the debt to get it at a lower rate to save us money, and we do that whenever the opportunity presents itself. There is a time frame that we can't do it, obviously, but and they're on top of it, the bonding agent. So whenever we're issuing, like, okay, you're gonna issue, notice that these ones are too high and we can potentially get these refunded. So they're on our side, they're looking to help us too.
On this one,
Okay.
so the water tank, was that what was being requested of ARPA, and does this mean that it's probably not gonna, or is this like a,
I can't speak to
well, that's
can't.
right.
that.
Or is it more like you're
100%.
anticipating, like, if it won't be funded through ARPA, we need this plan?
Yeah, if it's not, I mean, I guess
I'm
based
asking,
on the
is this the
conversations.
same 2 million or a
Yes.
different 2 million?
It is the
Okay.
same thing. It is the ongoing joke now in the upper meetings that I go, hey, don't forget the water and sewer, but
There's different amounts being given to water and sewer, but I could say that none of them have been proposed to be 2 million. Cause it was 650K that went towards the water rates, and then of the remainder, well, I guess it's still 2 million for the water tower, but nobody's gone that high so far.
Got it, and the bans expire in December.
Mhm.
And I believe when we presented this in April, we were very clear, like, this is a temporary
We kinda
funding
needed
until
an
a
idea
decision
by
has to be made.
September, and
One
it
of the
doesn't
things
look
that
good,
came up
so.
Exactly,
that it's kind of, we needed to expand on is people said, well, town meeting sent a clear message, they want 2 million towards this project, but at the time meeting took that vote, the feds hadn't changed their rules on the ARPA money. And I think had town meeting known, oh, now you can also call it lost revenue or all these other uses, town meeting, I can't say that they would speak differently, but
But they
you have to take that into account, that vote was under the assumption of certain conditions. So we kind of touched on that, and we'll probably get into it later, but
I definitely think that that's 100% true, like it was much more stringent what you could use this funding for, and this was a big chunk, and
Right, so we
it was
thought, well-
identified in their literature as something that you could use it for, and so people were like, great, let's do this, we need this extra 2 million, let's do it. But now that they've kind of changed things and expanded it, you can use it to help with a lot of different things. who knows if town meeting would have made the same choice if those same rules were in play.
And, you know,
It's hard to know.
maybe someone, I'm not saying that have to do that, people could put forth an instructional motion to change that, but it may, by the time they do it, RAC may have already allocated it, it may be moot.
Yeah, no, and I'm joking, I mean, we've heard, we've had probably 80 hours of rec meetings at this point, I mean, and we talked about, you know.
9 meetings, I
the-
think.
the- a lot of needs, town forest needs, you know, the recreation, mental health, wellness, I mean, it is a tough balance to balance out, you know, all the priorities and all the needs. The town meeting did authorize to the use of RAC fund, of RAC.
It was up to.
ARPA, up to $2 million, or
Debt.
free cash or debt.
Yeah.
So the vote was to you know, to.
That's true.
Yeah, it's not gonna go back to them if there's a debt authorization out there, so
Right.
we will just issue debt if we don't get
And it was, I was just thinking as I said that, but they said the up to, like Chris Haley kind of emphasized, we could allocate $1 inside of a town meeting.
Jeffrey, did you have something on your end? Sorry.
Yeah, I had two questions. First, Sharon, you were talking about that the 2 million for the water tower was kind of a small amount, so you wanted to bring some other debt in with it. But you've also talked about different timeframes for the different debts. Is that something, can you do that? Can you bring together a 2 million at 20 years plus a $500,000 at 10 years?
Yeah,
Or
every
doesn't that all
issuance
get-
every issuance is identified as a project or something, what you're using it for, and you can change how long you borrow for every project. So yeah, they do that, and so we budgeted the way we want to do it, and then obviously we can change it up if something changes, but until we issue, I mean, we can change how long we wanna borrow for, and I've seen several different issuances where we've got some at 5 years, some at 10, you know, but mostly the default for us is usually 10 years. We try and get it paid off as quickly as possible because we know we have stuff in the pipeline. Some of the bigger things like Killam, that would be pretty difficult. So, you know,
Yeah, sure.
but that's something that, you know, the auditors even say, well, you don't see a lot of that. Paying off in 10 years it really makes you look very good that we do that. We tend to default to 10 years because, you know, I guess we were always of the mindset, we don't wanna pay a lot of interest, we just wanna get this paid off. And I think that's the way Bob did it, that's the way I tend to do it. But sometimes it's not affordable within what you have, so we have to kind of weigh all of that and fit it in the way that the best, I would say the quickest repayment period that we can afford with our budget.
I
And
think
so
also when you do that, your effective interest rate is a lot higher. When you start paying off debt early, so it's, but so then the 2 million for the water tank, that ends in September? Did you say
So
that?
we said we needed to know by September because it takes us a while to issue debt. We have to actually put a statement out there of, you know, so that they have information about the town of Reading and its performance in order to issue debt. So we're working with the bonding agent to update that statement every time we're gonna issue debt. So it takes several months to get it out there. We're dealing with bond counsel, making sure bond counsel's comfortable that you are authorized to borrow, that you have all the right authorizations through town meetings. So there's a lot of steps to the process, and so we need to have adequate time to get everything together to issue for December. So the
When's the 1 year over though, on the, you know, we did a 1 year.
December, it's up in December, so that's why I said September, we needed to know just so that we had the lead time to get the debt borrowing, the offering on December. You know, so that it's not late, we're paying it off on time.
If I could,
Yeah, you have one more, didn't you, Jeff?
yeah, regarding the ask for free cash, yes, $2.2 million is a lot. On the other hand, we've got a significant free cash position right now that's, you know, I'm gonna say, what, $5 million above the FinCom guidance or more, right?
Mhm.
So that 2.2 is, you know, maybe half of the excess that's in there. So I wouldn't be against asking town meeting what they think about taking an extra 500,000 out of free cash instead of going out for debt. And I guess my other question would be, if we've got this, you know, balance in free cash, can we borrow from ourselves instead of going out to the, you know, to the markets to ask what the interest rates are and say, hey, we're gonna take 500,000 out of free cash and we're going to repay it as though it were debt to an outside agency along with, 5% interest or whatever.
We can do internal borrowing, but it can't cross over a fiscal year, so I'd have to have that internal borrowing paid off by June 30th. So we could, we can kind of time our issuance by doing internal borrowing and, know that, because there's also an arbitrage issue where you can't be holding, you've got to be able to spend the money within a certain time. So you've got to time your borrowing so that you're not in trouble with any of that you're not spending it quickly enough. And so sometimes we will use an internal borrowing to time it out correctly so that we are borrowing at a time where we feel like we're going to be able to spend for every project and not have a problem. But the internal borrowing cannot be out there at June 30th, so you have to pay it off. So it's not long-term, it's probably get you to the right month that you want to issue, but we can't really do anything past June 30th.
Okay, but I would, at least consider the idea of asking town meeting what they think of taking additional money from free cash instead of borrowing,
FinCom
particularly given uncertainty in interest rates.
I think FinCom can advise us to do that.
Yep.
I mean, if FinCom feels strongly that they think the town meeting would prefer free cash, we certainly can entertain that as well. I think we're just, assuming that we're asking a lot of free cash in one sitting and that people might not be comfortable. But that might not be the case. If you feel differently, we absolutely could be presenting this completely differently.
But to elaborate, right, I mean, we are going to be asking for an additional $590,000 in FY24 from free cash, right, to.
We're still at high use of free cash to just support the operating budget because it went up a lot during the pandemic because we had to bring back all of our revenues and, and they came back very slowly. And so we used $2,750,000 last year. And we're looking to use probably similar amount for next year. So that's a high use of free cash. You have to consider that as well. That's something else that we're asking of town meeting to authorize. It's almost $3 million of free cash just to balance the operating budget and then 2.2 for the, So I feel like the comfort level might start to diminish the more money you ask for.
And we don't know what the free cash will look like either.
Yeah. I mean, you'll get some numbers soon, at finance forum, but, and if they go up significantly, it might change the tune. Who knows?
Yeah.
But until you know that, it's hard to say.
And then they'll see the water rates and still wanna keep supplementing though, like, there's so many things. We have to, water reserves, we have to shore that back up.
FinCom's well within their right to advise how they feel comfortable.
Yes, that's it. I mean, I think that's, it's gonna be all part of the discussion.
We present it a certain way, you can advise us to go a different way, it's not a
Yep.
problem. Okay, so,
Any other, your question?
Sure, just comparing what you're presenting, Sharon, to what was in the packet. There's the additional temp funding in the packet was $525, not $590.
I think I said that in the beginning, that I spoke to Joe Huggins today on the phone. And we were talking about those, and Jeff, the card accesses, they were for 65,000 and they were pushed out several years and they came up at school committee as something they really wanted for next year. And timing of things, especially where this is something that Bob used to do kind of solely himself. I don't know the condition of a lot of things, so I'm really relying on department heads to tell me the priorities in a lot of cases. And this was something that was brought up, and I'm like, if it wasn't something large, it wasn't hard to move it there. So I added it here, so that's the difference between what you see and what is on the screen.
And Sharon is doing an amazing job, by the way. Bob told me that Sharon is doing an amazing job.
Bob told you? Bob came to my office and I showed him, like, am I doing this right? This is a lot of money that I'm out of bounds. Yeah, so I mean, as you can see in 26, we would return to the 5%. Things are looking much better in the future years. And when you see these green numbers here, that means there's excess there to spend. Now, as we move forward, I'm sure that excess goes away, but
It always does.
more things get added as we get closer, as things, as we identify more needs. And the things that are on the capital plan, in some ways, if you look at this, there's a time frame that for replacement, and if we know that, we put it in parentheses and we try and keep it in that time frame. So I'm just learning a lot of this myself, but I do feel like no matter how I tried to shift these numbers, that it looked like fiscal 25 needed to have a little bit more. But I do feel capital is a great use of free cash, so, but that's your decision, not mine.
No, I'm just looking through this, you know, and I've had kind of a couple of days to be able to do that. I like just the editorial, a lot of great notes in here, Sharon, just as far as kind of giving us some guidance as far as, okay, this moved out. You know, it's kind of highlighted in a certain way and there's notes on the side, move that out 2 years, move
That's
it.
to help me too.
Well, no, and, you know, but again, I think this is, you know, pouring through these spreadsheets isn't always easy for anybody. So having, you know, and just seeing numbers on a page, you know, having those additional notes really, it makes
really
it
helps.
a much more digestible and kind of easier to understand. And I think we all kind of understand that it's fluid, and this just helps to be able to kind of highlight that.
And that's the way Bob always maintained it, so it was just easy to pick it up and do anything with it, because, you know, when somebody thinks a lot like you, you're able to pick it up and, oh, I get what's going on here. But
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, and it would be interesting, you know, again, and I think it's, you know, it's on the, you know, the kind of the front page of, right where it, like, that line 34 and below, where, you know, this was, you know, for the longest time, that was the only kind of editorials that we had. You know, it was really that, and that is also, you know, kind of helpful.
it's a lot to look at though.
Yeah, but
These are things that Bob left and I'm like, oh, okay.
yeah, it's just,
This has gotta go somewhere, that's gotta go
I
somewhere.
put a lot of those in there, so.
You did? So
What-
it's definitely going to be, you know, help when people prompt me like, oh, I have a number for this and I think we need to do it by this date, you know, I think, you know, when people bring something to our attention, it helps, because I'm not gonna necessarily know as quickly as Bob might have where to put something.
No, I know it's really helpful. Any other questions for Sharon?
Sure, like, you know, like, I don't know if it's a bond agent, but did you say, can they directionally give you like what debt would be like for 15 years now if we issued it in December? Like,
Yeah,
is
I know
like
that
3%
Andrew,
or-
the treasurer who deals with the bonding agent, had asked the question, I just didn't get the answer back, so, and Andrew is now working per diem, only 1 day a week, so I'll see him on Tuesday, so hopefully I can get an answer, because I know that he sent an email, because I asked, like, we should get an idea of what this is gonna look like what are they seeing issuances coming out at? Because these numbers are so high right now, I'm just a little shocked, so I don't know what to expect.
Cause it'd be great, obviously, just to have that out,
And
you
it
know,
will
for
help me
3
with the
million,
debt
5 million.
schedule as well, I absolutely need it for the debt schedule, you know, are they packaging them with premiums and what are they looking at, like, because when we sold at 0.87, I think they gave us a 4% premium, well, you've gotta pay interest at 4%, you wanna be budgeting properly, and, you know, so what they tell us will help me, when I'm putting any of these new issuances in the debt plan, to make sure I'm putting the right amount of interest, you know, especially if they are still doing premiums and, you know, oh, you're gonna see it packaged at 5, well, that's high for us, we don't normally see 5s, you know, so I wanna get that information sooner rather than later as we're starting this process, so that when we issue debt, we have the right amount budgeted for interest. Because we don't kind of, in the past, we used to reserve the premium and amortize it over the life of the debt, and then after municipal monetization, they don't let you do that anymore. They have you borrow less, and so if they gave me, you know, if I was borrowing $3 million and they gave me $100,000 in premiums, they tell me to borrow 2.9, and then you use the premium towards your project, and then it all works out actually. But so it's done a little bit differently, and so I'll be interested to see how they're packaging these deals for municipalities, especially with our bond rating. And that information is going to be crucial to building the debt schedule.
Yeah, I guess the other thing, like, I don't know if they could, I mean, it's probably just a guess, but like the AAA versus like AA, I'm not saying that we wanna give
But the
that up,
difference is, yeah, we don't want our AAA to go away, that's for
No,
sure.
my guess is it's gonna be more material now with like
For
rates
sure.
being higher, right?
The
Obviously,
difference
right?
between, that would be interesting to know, like,
Yeah.
what's the nexus between the two different rates?
Yeah, and then just another request, sorry. And I know these are subjective, but like what, like we always have these, people have their own rules about like free cash. It
Mhm.
needs to be 7%, 10%, you know, I mean, I just have heard different things, like, oh, I don't know what that,
What it should be?
yeah, if there's a range there, because people quote like, okay, we have 2.5 times more in free cash, free cash than we really need.
Yeah, it's hard to
It'd be
say.
nice, I know it's not an
I feel
exact
like
number,
the
but
free cash position that we have is high, but it ensures our AAA bond rating because we have adequate reserves. And I feel like whenever the auditors are asked, they're always quoting us 10% of your budget should be reserves if you wanna be at that AAA bond rating at minimum. So even though our FinCom policy says 7% for reserves, we never get close to 7, we're always well in excess. So it's something to always keep in mind because there's no magic number that anybody will just tell you, but they give you guidance and it tends to be in that 10 to 13% range is what I hear auditors telling me when people ask the question. And so that would be an area where I'd start to get nervous if we started to get down there. We are not down there, let's hope we never are. But yeah, we kind of have to always be cognizant because you do save a lot of money with AAA. You're issuing large debts, so.
thanks.
Right. So the next item on the agenda was to, I think it was just a top FY 24 budget, if I'm not mistaken. That was capital.
So do you want me to show you kind of like where we are so far?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that might help. So this is the same spreadsheet that Bob always maintained. I just picked it up and started using it. As a kind of starting off point, we almost always try to show an operating budget of 3% and see how, we project our revenues, so I've done that. And we project our accommodated cost. I have reached out to all of the department heads that have accommodated cost under their discretion. Because I've gone through the numbers, so this is the first section of accommodated cost benefits, it's our biggest section. And I've gone through these and looked at actuals, compared the numbers. And I actually found some things that are gonna help us, like this here can be adjusted down at November town meeting because the number we had was higher than what's actually on our actuarial report of what we actually are gonna have to pay for fiscal 23, so there's 145,000 there, so that's part of what I'm gonna use to get those firearms. So anyway, looking at this, when I was looking at each section, I looked at every expense line item, looked at actuals, looked at what we had projected, what Bob had projected, and then determined whether or not I felt I needed to change it. In many cases, his numbers were very solid, even after the fact, so because he usually has a good feel on what the numbers should be, and there's a little bit of buffer, especially in the health insurance, because when we're building the budget, we never know what our rate of entry increase is gonna be. We don't know what our enrollment in the program is gonna look like. We really don't know a lot of things. So he always, he has an increase here of 4%, but the number that we've been having has had excess that we've been using at town meetings. At April town meeting, if we have extra money in benefits, we're using it for capital and we're moving things around. And so, so there's excess built into some of these numbers because we don't know, some uncertainty. So when there is uncertainty, you see those numbers are a little bit more conservatively budgeted to be sure. The other thing that he did in the benefits areas is the OPEB contribution. You see we have 500,000, which I think we were at 550 before the pandemic, but I'm leaving it at 5 because we've got a lot going on right now. But that 500,000 is a buffer. I don't put that into the OPEB trust until April. And so say we were running over on benefits or we needed more for benefits, we could forgo putting in the OPEB contribution and use it there. So that was kind of another safety net that's put into that insurance area because it is such a volatile area, I'll say.
So sure, now is there any rule that, so using that example, could you only use that for something else that's like within the benefits area, or could you use
I could move it at town meeting somewhere else, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I could. And a lot of times, we'd have to get at town meeting, it would be one of those amending the current budget.
Yep.
And I would say reduce this line by this and increase this line by this, and then they have to approve it. They can say no,
Gotcha.
So, but it's a nice buffer to have there because OPEB is not mandated, we don't have to fund it. But we have been funding it for years and it's viewed very positively that we do, and sometimes we put extra in. Yes.
Just related to OPEB though, isn't there some looming deadline like fiscal year 30 or 31 where we have to finish funding it, or was that a goal?
No, that's pension.
Pension, or
Pension, so that's the line above, that retirement contribution. That's our assessment for the pension. Pension is mandated, and we had been at 2029 for fully funded status. This most recent valuation pushed us out 2 years because they asked us to bring our discount rate all the way down to 7, and we were like 7.65. It added like $10 million.
Sorry, I knew there was something like that we had to,
That's the
had
one
to
that you
fund.
can't go below what you did last year.
Yeah, you can't fund at a lower level than you did the year before, until you're fully funded. And so that's an area where you are mandated, so you've gotta be pretty solid on the number, but this number came right out of our actuarial report that tells us what we need to pay. So Bob had this a little bit higher, so that's where I took the 100,000 for the firearms that we're gonna ask for in November if we go that direction. So I looked at each one of these numbers, and if there was a department head involved, like say you look at street lighting, DPW, I spoke to the department head and said, okay, can you look at these numbers and come back to me if you think that there's a change that I haven't made, that there's something that you know that I don't, because this is something that Bob did and I wasn't as involved in, so there could be contract issues, there could be so many things at play that I don't understand or know. And so I'm working very closely with whoever the department head is who has these line items under their discretion. So facilities, DPW are the big ones. Casualty insurance falls under administrative services, but I see all that stuff too, so I'm pretty good with that. But I do check in with the person who deals with our casualty insurance provider, so and to see if she has any different thoughts. But I have the actual bill. I've already paid it, so I know that this number is low. I mean, needs to be increased. So you see, I put a little note. I need to do this in November town meeting. This number came in 50,000 higher on the actual bill than what was budgeted. So that's the kind of thing that Bob would do as he knows things, and so that's what I'm trying to do to kind of highlight for myself. This needs to increase. So anything that I look at fiscal 23 when I start and make sure that everything's okay with the current year and identify things that need to be done at November town meeting, and then I'm looking at the 24 numbers as well. Going through these, I went through in detail, looked at all the actuals, looked at what the budget was here, and determined if I felt the number there was reasonable. In the DPW one, did I make the change yet? No. I did speak to Jane Kinsella, and I increased this by 10 because that's what I had left to balance, but I knew it was gonna be more because I put another 10, so I'm gonna be changing that number. So as I get information back from the department head who's actively engaged in that area, I'm incorporating any advice that they're giving me, because they're definitely huge information coming back from them because they know more about what the environment looks like than I do.
Yeah, they're so close to it,
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And so we have had all those conversations, those already have begun. The one area where I haven't gotten a number back, and that's a big area, is sped. That it's kind of early to get that number, but they promised I would have it somewhat soon. So hopefully my numbers, or the numbers that Bob had there, I didn't change them, aren't too far off. So the accommodated cost and the projections of revenues, that's where we start. And once those are solid, then we're more able to kind of drill into what kind of operating budget can we be looking at. And then the other thing that changes that is how much free cash has FinCom willing to commit to this operating budget, because that can change it. If we start at $2,750,000 and we're at a 3% operating budget, if we're okay with that, or if you wanted it to be more, or if you wanted it to be less, then we have to kind of adjust things accordingly based on how you advise. So that being the case, this particular budget for fiscal 24 is built off of an operating budget of 3%, which is not a particularly high one. I do have to do some adjusting to account for that 65,000 I put here, but for the most part is in balance at 3%. But again, there could be some moving parts. I don't have the special ed numbers; those could change from what Bob has projected. I could have savings there that could be spent somewhere else. I could need more money there. So it's a moving target at this point, but this process has already started, and we're looking at it regularly and consulting with all the department heads to get the most accurate figures that we can get.
Jim, do you, like, for state aid, is that number locked in yet? Is that
So the
projected?
state aid for fiscal '23 is locked in. I changed it on here. That's the other thing. It's good that you mentioned that on the revenue side. State aid was a number I had to change, and I had to adjust numbers for. But I also have been told by the assessor that our projection for fiscal '23 for new growth looks a little bit high than he thinks the number is going to come out. So I kind of already made the adjustment here, even though I don't know the final number, because I didn't want to be building off of a number that is too high to begin with when I get to 24. So I'm bringing it down because he's like, I'm thinking 900 is probably where I'll be at. So he's guessing at this point, but once I know that number, it gets solidified in there. Because sometimes, if you look at the year before, new growth was at $1.6 million. I think we had it budgeted at like 800 in a town meeting we had to take. We had to spend that or we lose that excess. So what happens when that happens is you notice we used like 500,000 or 560,000 for amending the budget, and it probably was a lot of capital if I remember correctly. But in order to pick up the remainder so that we don't lose it on the levy, I have to adjust my my local revenues down so that I can expect more levy, because you don't want to leave it on the table. It only goes up 2.5%, so we usually go for that number to be as close to the max as possible. So those numbers that I've highlighted I've had to change for one reason or another. So, I mean, we are in good shape in terms of, this is really early for us to have already started this process and looking at this, but Bob was a whiz. This was his life, and he did it so quickly and so well. We're a little more nervous about it. So we're taking our time, and we're trying to make sure that we don't make any mistakes.
That makes sense. Jim, sorry, I won't keep asking questions, but what about COLAs? Is there any like cost of living that's not baked into this yet, or?
So with the 3% operating budget, the unions have already got contracts in place. But frequently when you're talking about the unions, a lot of people will be at top step, so that there's some savings in there. They'll only get a COLA, they won't get a step and a COLA. So those would have to be afforded within that operating budget of 3%, one way or another. Based on what you give us for an idea of what free cash is, that's what would drive us to determine how much COLA we can afford. Because for the town side, currently, a step is 2%. And most people, if they've got a successful review, they get a step. And then the COLA is something additional. So if you give them a 3% operating budget, the COLA is 1. So we build the budget to match up with the operating budget that we're allowed to spend. If that makes, so the COLA kind of, it's usually a step, and then the COLA, if you say 3.5, the COLA is 1.5 for the non-union people. But when it comes to union contracts, it has to fit in there, but it tends to when we built it up. We built our budgets from the bottom up, so we're building them by person, so we make sure that they fit into that. If for instance, if salaries were coming up for a department that's unionized higher than that 3%, we would need to cut costs in the expense area to make it work. So we build our budget to make it fit into what we're allowed.
As opposed to going up like 8%, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
8 or 9%, yeah.
I mean, because we're locked into a lot of these union contracts, we're kind of in a good place with that, because I'm thinking a lot of people are going to be expecting bigger raises when they negotiate contracts. So
Yeah, the two caveats that I was going to say is we earlier this year we started doing a pay class study, which is basically an analysis of how we compare to our peer communities, right? Into salary. Retention right now is an issue for everyone, right? I mean, it's an employees market, right? And people are getting offers, all the time, right? So we need to ensure that we are staying attractive, not paying above market, but at least paying market. So we expect for that pay class study process to be done hopefully this month, which is going to inform the FY24 budget, right? So the I just to be cautious and let you know that we are not overpaying our employees. I'll say that. So this is not the year to reduce on salaries expenses because of how the employment market is, because of inflation, right? I mean it's all of these things. So we will be conservative and balance the budget, but last in FY23 we included a 1.75 COLA, right? On top of the
2% step, yeah.
2% step. So yeah, I will highly advocate to everyone that will hear that we should not do any less than that this year.
Yeah, this budget I'm showing you right now is just built with the 3%. It's adjusted based on guidance. If you think that we need to have bigger COLAs or things like that, that's how you would tell us to adjust. Anything else?
Ed, I had one other
Go ahead.
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sharon, you mentioned new growth, and that reminded me, I wanted to ask the question. So there's been some talk about possibly the town purchasing a building. I mean, there's a request for proposals to us, lease to buy for the senior center. If we bought a commercial property, I assume that obviously then goes off the tax rolls. Does that affect new growth in any fashion?
No, I mean, it might affect our overall, I would think it would fall off the roll because we wouldn't pay tax to ourselves. But it doesn't affect the new growth number, it would be the regular levy that would be affected. So
We
that
wouldn't have,
it wouldn't even be affected, it would be
Instead
kind of
of
like,
negative
the levy would be spread across the properties that are taxable. So it kind of like just drops off the roll. But that doesn't mean we wouldn't be able to tax 2.5% over the prior year levy. So it almost could affect individual taxpayers or commercial properties slightly because that one property isn't paying anymore. Do you know what I mean? So it's based on your appraised value or assessed value of your property, and they're going to say this is what the levy is, and based on your value of your property, you pay your portion. This property would no longer be in that calculation.
the levy doesn't decrease when we take something off the rolls. Okay, thank you.
Good, go ahead, Jean.
Sharon, you may have actually covered this and I missed it, but could you talk a little bit about the other local revenue projections? They're going up 12.2%, and some of them kind of seem like big swings.
12.2, oh, this is in fiscal 23. This is what I'm putting, these are the changes I'm proposing to make when I do the tax recap, when I have to take the hit on the new growth. But these are based on what I've seen as actual numbers for fiscal 22. We're starting to see pretty good recovery. We scaled back a lot of these numbers quite a bit when that pandemic struck, and we brought them back slowly, and we're seeing regeneration in some of these areas. In some areas we clawed them back too much, and so that would be why I feel comfortable with these numbers, because fiscal 22 it looks like we're yielding a lot of regeneration in
Perfect. So this isn't based on what you project will happen. This is based on what you're actually
what
seeing.
actually happened in fiscal 22.
Thank you.
So you'll see this when I show you free cash, like, okay. We try to adjust our thinking based on what actually has happened and what's happening in the current year, so.
So, any other questions, comments?
The other thing I didn't mention is we kind of do a couple different things, like a 5-year average, and we're looking at what's actually happening. We're considering a lot of different things. It's not just like, just last year. We're looking at a lot more than that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Really appreciate this. The more that we, as a committee, see this stuff, the better off we are. It really just helps inform us, and again, getting these tidbits helps us with guidance too. So I really appreciate that. Next item, next to last item on the agenda is just to talk, and this is something we've had, just something to talk about grants. Again, I know that's
That's this here.
perfect. Yeah.
But I can also bring it up.
Yeah, just would be interesting, I know, there's, kind of a lot of talk about, how much we depend on some of these grants that are already in place, new ones that were, and then it's just, again, another funding source that I don't think it's been a little bit more opaque to us. I think just having a little bit more detail on that would be really helpful. I appreciate you already putting this together, but, if you can kind of just talk through some of the highlights, that'd be great.
So I gave you guys all a packet of information that I didn't get done in time to put in your packet, I apologize. But I'll go through all of it. So this first sheet that you have in your packet is just kind of outlining for fiscal 22, 23, or what we know about for 24, because that MVP one is for 2 years, so I kind of broke it out. What new grants we saw in the year, and what they totaled to. So in fiscal 22, you see we have an earmark for community gardens for $10,000. We got an earmark for the redesign of Haven Street parking lot for $50,000. We did the Eastern Gateway pedestrian accessibility for $50,000 and substance abuse for $10,000. And then the acquisition of property on Grove Street, we got an earmark for $150,000 to assist with that acquisition. And we got a municipal road grant for $20,490. We heard about this at the rec. There was an accelerated literacy grant for $200,000 that we were able to obtain through the school department, and then they asked for the additional funding through ARPA. I'm not sure what this is in terms, it's a school grant, but they use this acronym and I have no idea, and they didn't attach the grant document. So, but this is something that's new that we hadn't had prior, and it was $18,715. And then they had another grant that was Department of Public Health. It looked like training for nurses, probably COVID related stuff, $29,600. In fiscal 23, we have the MVP grant that Fidel spoke of, just over $2.1 million, but it is broken out between 2 fiscal years. And that's the one we have the match on, right? Yeah. And then we have a winter recovery assistance program that we haven't seen this grant since 2015. We got that in 23 for $308,566. We have a grant for our K9 dog that we just got for $32,000. And then we have several earmarks that Fidel worked hard to get. We have rock wall repairs for Memorial Park at $25,000. Reading Robotics Team's got a $25,000 grant from an earmark. We had some overages on a ladder truck. Is that what that was for? Yeah, $50,000 for that. Placemaking implementation, we got an earmark for $100,000. Pedestrian crossing improvements at Lakeview Ave and Walker Brook Drive, that intersection, we got $200,000 there. We got an earmark for an electric vehicle for the Reading Coalition for $50,000. Another electric vehicle earmark for $60,000, and then another earmark for $125,000 for the Birch Meadow Master Plan. So, wow, I don't think I've ever seen as many earmark grants in 1 year, but good for us. And then nothing else for fiscal 24. It's kind of early to have that. The only reason I show that column is because the MVP is spread between the 2 years. So I thought that would be helpful to see all the new money coming in. Yes.
Go ahead, Marie.
No, just when you're done speaking. So I don't know if the schools gave you the acronym that was off, but there is something on the state website that listed for August 11th, an ASOST grant, after school and out of school time grant. So maybe
They had a T in there, okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't
So
figure it out, I'm
I
like,
see
what does it mean? So what does it mean, after school?
The state acronym is ASOST.
Yeah.
For after school and out of school time, so grant for the summer program. After school and out of school time, so that might be what it is.
I think it is.
And then I just had a follow-up on the Birch Meadow Master Plan. Was something tied to that grant? Is that something that can go towards the
That's a
lacrosse
question for
wall
him,
or?
not for me.
The answer is yes.
Yes,
Yes.
so that's that's good news.
Good news, good news. Good news. Yeah, the earmark is broad. It basically, we could use it for anything as part of essentially phase one, what we're calling phase one.
Okay.
I will take this back until you vote the $1.5 million though, and
Well, they asked for like 1.7 or something, but, no, but
Don't
look,
reduce
look
the
at all
amount
the
you're
request, this is
getting back.
125.
She's like, that's extra money.
No, but that could, there's
Put your
like
thumb over
5
that,
other
yeah.
people who could use that money if there's a grant and still,
For sure, for sure.
pleasing both sides, anyway.
You tried really hard to not have Sharon put this on the
Should have
list.
shared this in September.
The thing is, this has
He's
to
the one who
be
told
used,
me I missed it. Are you kidding? No.
but this
Stop with the
has to be
electric
used for
vehicles.
this purpose though, and
Yes, it
RAC
has to.
has more flexibility, so given that this has to be used for Birch Meadow.
And there
That's
is
good to know.
also an application, I don't think I scrolled down far enough for you to see the pending applications. I believe this is another earmark kind of grant for $1 million for the feasibility for the Pleasant Street Center. That is not awarded, that's just out there, we
That
have
would be
not
amazing.
heard. So that's what I put together just to summarize some of the new stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's some additional information that I gave you in the packet. Let me see if I can find it here.
Of course, if they don't build one, maybe it goes away.
Share screen. You guys don't typically ask us to show you grants, so I was trying to think of what do I have that would help them understand what our grants look like and not be an enormous document. And so this is what I came up with. This is something I put together for the auditors to help them see the activity on all of our grants for federal and state. So, and it's broken down between town and school grants. So here you can see all of our grants. It's hard to see though. There's a lot of them. But the ones that I have in yellow are ones that we've received within the last couple of years that will eventually go away. So like CARES is all done. The FEMA COVID grant is all, I think, pretty much done. We just are waiting for our money. ARPA, we're still working on, but that will extend out a couple years. And then the FEMA Safer grant was to hire new firefighters. It was for several years and is now done. So I highlighted it just to let you know that that's going away.
No, that's helpful. That was actually one of the things that was, we had questioned.
And if you see no activity in fiscal '22, that means this grant existed in the past, but nothing has happened in fiscal '22, which means we didn't get awarded that grant this year. This was just I couldn't figure out what to give you that wouldn't take too long to put together, so this is what I came up with. So if you have recommendations, but it basically tells you in that intergovernmental column, that's the revenue coming in and then the expenses going out the door. Frequently, what you'll see, and this is something I've mentioned when it talks about free cash calculations, these numbers are as of June 30th. You'll see sometimes that these grants are in deficit, and we have to deduct that from free cash if we don't get the money by September 30th. So at June 30th, I have a deficit, but I might not have to deduct it if I wait. So that's why we wait until the end of September to file our free cash, because some of these grants are going to be in deficit because the arrangement is reimbursement based in most point. We're spending the money and then we're putting in for reimbursements. Not all of them, but many of them are that way. So it's important to know that that's a piece of the pie that it holds free cash. So you want to kind of wait as long as you can into September, see how much money you collect from your state and federal grants for grants that were in deficit at year end, so that you don't have to deduct it from your free cash. So those are the federal grants for the town. So there's a fair amount. We have a lot of police grants and fire grants. And then the highlighted ones are the ones I mentioned. So you can peruse those at your leisure and ask questions. And then state, all these ones here are pretty typical grants that we've had for years. They're not highlighted. In some cases, they've gone away, like our CASA grants that we had in the past. They're still listed here that we had them, but we haven't gotten any money for a couple of years now. Chapter 90 is typical. Every year we have Chapter 90. So down at the bottom of this screen, I have some highlighted, and those are a lot of the earmark grants I spoke of on the other page are the ones that you see here that are all completely new. Those should be on your page here. I think this MAPC DPH grant was from the prior year, but it ended the year in the deficit. We got the money this year. So that's not a new one. It would not be on your sheet, but it is kind of a one-year thing. I don't anticipate us getting it again. I don't know how interested you are in schools, but let me click over to schools.
And just to confirm, looking at this page, I just noticed at the top, code 530 summer, and you have 530, so it is the right one.
Oh, is it? Yeah, awesome.
So
Oh.
and
They
because
give you the code,
528
but
is
I don't know
school
what
year,
they're-
530 summer.
So let me take that T out of there.
Yeah, so it's
That clearly doesn't-
ASOST, and you could put 530 and it's
I do have the 530, so that
ASOST, so another S.
S.
ASOST and
Okay.
530, and that's summer, just so you can clarify.
This one's summer.
That's what it says on the DESI webpage, because 528
See, I
is
was
school
like
year.
looking for grant documents that would help me understand what these grants are, cause I see them,
Yeah.
they set them up themselves, so I'm like, oh, I don't know. So these highlighted ones are new, we talked about them because they're on here. But the ones that are highlighted down here are kind of the COVID grants that I don't anticipate we'll continue to get, the CARES one and all of that. We have money coming in, but we spent the money in the prior year, that sort of thing. But so that you can see kind of what kind of grants we typically see, and the yellow ones are kind of either new or ones that I expect to not see in the future. I don't know if that's helpful.
Very helpful. This is really, I mean, it's a lot of detail in here, and it's kind of what I think what we, or at least what I assumed that there was a lot here, but we just didn't know about it. So it's, and kudos to Fidel and everyone on the staff about, you know, chasing them. I'm sure that's not an easy task. Any questions, comments for Sharon or Fidel on it? Good.
So I know on the school ones, they fall completely under the purview of the school committee and school department, so certainly don't wanna get out of our lane. But can you talk a little bit to the work that you do to ensure that we don't create operating ongoing budget costs in our operating budget, that when the grant goes away, we now have a problem, a position that we can't fund or a program we can't
So
fund?
the kind of thing that the thing that we do in the operating budget to kind of avoid that is not avoid it, but make it known that something could potentially go away is we don't, when we take money coming into, let's say salaries are being charged to a grant, instead of showing them on the grant and then they reappear someday on the budget, we show them on our general fund budget with grant support coming in, a negative number. So you'll see all the positions there, and then you'll see a salary support coming from a grant, salary support coming from a revolving fund, so that you're aware that there's something coming in to support that section that could potentially go away if we didn't have the grant anymore, or whatever the case might be. But I think that's a little bit easier for you to assess what you have for people, because they're all on the operating budget, and then the support comes in as a negative. Whereas if we put them on the grants directly, in some cases, if that grant goes away and they appear in the operating budget, it just would be a big swing for whatever line item that is, so.
Yeah, good job.
Just like quickly, on the chapter 90, is that state highway?
It is.
It has to be, so that could be used on Haven Street, I guess, right? Like, could we, I know it's kind of digressing, I'm just
No,
curious.
no, it's okay. So the chapter 90 is a mandate essentially. So the state has to give all communities you know, a portion, right? But it is dictated by a formula of like drivers in the town, how many miles you get, et cetera, and you can only use it for paving or sidewalks
Okay,
in town-owned roads, so not on private ways.
okay.
We typically get about 600,000 a year. It's not a ton of money, but yeah. And then we usually budget in our capital plan for roads and sidewalks and stuff like that. So between the two, we were able to do a fair amount of work. Not a lot, but fair.
Thanks.
Was your question, is that limited to state roads?
Well, I guess it sounds like it's not, right? That's what I took it, yeah, and I was just curious how it even worked, right, but I was just
And
wondering.
not private.
So technically, to answer my own question, like, I
State
think
roads, no.
we could use it on Haven Street if we wanted to, right?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, granted, we probably could only do so much with it, but.
Haven Street is $7 million or something.
Yeah, that helps.
I didn't know if there was some magic pocket of money there, sorry, okay, thanks.
think there was one year we got
I'm still
extra
looking
chapter
for it.
nine, usually 600,000.
You find that pocket, let me know.
Well, it's supposed to be all this money at the state level, right? I don't know why it's not trickling down, but anyways.
Well, there was that one grant that I showed you on here that we did get, which is kind of from kind of the same place, that winter recovery assistance, like that's for roads. Let's see, where is it? RAP 308,566, so that's additional funding to help us repair roads that were damaged
Potholes
during
or-
the winter. Yeah, and we don't normally get that, so when you get something like that, that's very helpful. Because that's additional money that you have to do repairs, so.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Sharon? Thanks so much for putting that together. Really, really appreciate it. It was perfect. Any other questions for Sharon on that? All right, we're down to the last agenda item, meeting minutes. Jackie, thanks so much for putting that together. There was quite a bit in there, so I appreciate you doing that. I didn't have any questions on it and didn't know if anybody else did. Actually, I did have a question. So Jackie, on, in the meeting minutes, you had, the liaison assignments. Is that something, again, I know we talked about this a little bit in the beginning of the meeting, but is that something that you could kind of carve that piece of it out and just, kind of redistribute that to us, just so that we have kind of it in one document, not embedded in the meeting minutes? That would be helpful for me.
Yeah, definitely. I did get it right?
You did, as far as I actually,
Okay.
I normally don't read the
I was
minutes,
concerned
but
about that.
I normally don't read the minutes, but I really paid attention to that when you got it right.
Okay, perfect. Then yes, I will definitely convert that into an updated liaison form.
Awesome, thanks, Jackie. Any other questions or comments on the agenda, on the meeting minutes?
Can those liaisons be updated on the website too?
Mhm.
Awesome, thanks,
Definitely.
thanks.
No comments. I'll entertain a motion on the meeting minutes.
Move to approve the finance committee meeting minutes dated July 27, 2002.
Thanks, Jean. Thanks, Joe Carnahan. We'll go to roll call. Jeffrey,
Yes.
Joe McDonough,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Joe Carnahan,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
and Ed, yes. That's 8-0. Any other questions or comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Perfect. Take that. Thanks, Emily.
Second.
Thanks, Jean. Jeffrey,
Yes.
Joe McDonough,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Joe Carnahan,
Yes.
Emily.
Yep.
Ed, yes. 8-0. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Time.